Hey guys, welcome back to the Stay Unqualified podcast. This is John and Anam.
Yep.
Today we are talking about in my opinion, this weird word, this really big word that has a lot of meaning.
Fire hydrant.
No, that has a lot of meaning to it, which is purpose.
Okay.
And it's something that I feel like I struggle with a lot to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as we're going through the 7 circles for Saints model, you have the last 3 circles as vision, purpose, and calling.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I was like stumped.
Like,
What's the difference of all three? But I'm actually glad that God gave you this message of these circles, because I think it forced us to kind of look into and forced me to look into it deeper. Like, what is the difference
I honestly
between?
wouldn't have known had we not tried to figure it out together.
Yeah.
I feel like God really did use you in a lot of ways to make that clarification for me, at least.
Because I think for me, I'm like, anything that either of us is saying, like both of us are like, oh, like we need to like actually like know what we're saying type of thing. So I think it forced us to look into it a lot. Like, what is vision? Even yet last week when we talked about vision, I found out it's God's promise. That opened up a whole new like pathway in my brain of like, whoa, like the vision is more than just dreams. It's God's promise, to us. It's about the future for sure, but it's like God's promise. It's like he's also involved in the vision for our lives,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
So that's kind of like to also recap vision.
Yeah.
But now we're going to purpose. But before we get into like what we found out, like when you think about purpose, what comes to your mind?
No, I actually, wow, I did not sit down with it. Like, generally speaking, I would go into the Bible, go to Google, go to everything under the sun to try to figure out what it means, but I have nothing today. The first thing that comes off the top of my head is like your reason for existing, I guess, is the first thing that comes off the top of my head.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, okay, I'll be super honest. When I came into the faith, I feel like people throw the word purpose around left and right. Like I feel like it's a really just very used, very common word.
Mm.
I just don't think we all of us know what it means.
Yeah. So like,
Right.
how'd you hear it thrown around? Like, what was the?
Like, oh, like what's your purpose? Like if people ask like what's your purpose, or like people are like talking about God's purpose for you. It's this weird enigma
Mm.
that I feel like, for this is my experience. Like I feel like because I struggle with finding purpose, that I feel like I've always had this weird thing of like, I don't know my purpose. Like, what's my everyone else knows their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
However, to find out from, prepping for this episode, I'm more struggling with calling than with purpose.
And
I'm still struggling with purpose
okay.
because I struggle sometimes with knowing, like, why did God create me?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I exist? I
Mm-hmm.
think I struggle with understanding God's love for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something that I'm giving up on, but I think it's like I'm wrestling with it, you
Yeah.
know? But that's where purpose is rooted.
Yeah.
Right. But I realize, like, I think we use purpose and calling interchangeably.
Mm.
And so for me, I'm like, everyone else knows their purpose. Like, what's my purpose? Like, should I be this? Should I be that? Da, 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 da. And it's just like, that's not purpose. That's calling.
And even that, like, I love the fact that you're using them, like those both those words in that way, because often you could see a person in whatever career
Yeah.
or field and be like, oh, they already figured out their purpose.
Like
But
they know, like they're so sure of it.
and that's not necessarily true. Like,
Yeah.
I think that you could actually find yourself in a career and feel completely void of excitement, happiness to be able to be there on a day-to-day basis. Don't get me wrong. I feel like even with purpose, vision, and your calling in place, there's rough times.
Yeah.
You'll definitely it doesn't, it's not like God's gonna be like, oh, you will have comfort once you have all three. Once you figure out these things for yourself, or figure out my call over your life.
Yeah.
No, it's still gonna be challenging, but I can definitely say with certainty that I have found honestly my calling.
Mm-hmm.
And there are moments where I want to like be like, nope, nope, no, I give up.
Yeah.
And then there's other moments where I'm like, and that's why I didn't.
Yeah.
Because had I given up, I wouldn't be in this beautiful space right now, ministering or being with
Yeah.
people in a very intimate way, and
Yeah.
I think it's all the more worth it to like pursue it. But yeah, I like that you brought that up. Like people throw it around very,
Yeah.
you know.
So when I started looking into it, it's like what is actually purpose? These are some of the definitions that I got. It's why you were created, like why God created you specifically.
Mm,
The reason you exist,
mm,
which I'll talk about in a second. It's this is the other thing that really shocked me. It's rooted in God's glory and his story of redemption.
yeah.
And that blew my mind because I'm like it's about him.
Mm-hmm.
We make it sometimes purposes about us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it's about him. He gives us that purpose. And it's connected to reflecting Christ's character, like Christ to people, and journeying in his mission
Yeah.
to bring people into salvation, to bring people into a knowing of him, into a relationship of him.
No.
But to go back to the definition of the reason you exist, I thought about it and I'm like, if it is to reflect Christ's character, if it is to be rooted in God's glory, like what is God? Who is God? God is love.
Hmm.
So for me, I'm like, the
Jeez.
reason you exist is to love and be loved. It sounds so, I know, it sounds like super like whatever, but to me, I'm just like, I just feel like if we really want to preach God, if we really want to embody God in everything that we do, like purpose is unchanging.
Mm-hmm.
So in everything that we do, in all the interactions that we have, in the different callings that we have, right? Which we're going to talk about next week, calling. But in all the different roles, responsibilities, seasons of life that we have, our purpose does not change.
Mm-hmm.
It is to love and be loved. It is constantly going back to God. You're always pointing back to God and his message,
Yeah.
his salvation, his love for us. And it's rooted in all of us kind of understanding that we're journeying with God in this mission
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
We're all wanting to, help everyone, get everyone to know this, who Christ is, who God is, and this plan of salvation that he has for us.
Yeah. I like
So,
that a lot.
yeah.
And actually kind of reminded me of biblical story. I don't know if it's too soon to jump into it.
Which one?
Okay, Esther.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yes. So Esther specifically, it kind of it pricked my heart in a way because I was thinking about the idea of purpose. And the first things that came to mind, like the first couple of words were like for such a time like this.
Yeah.
So in essence, if you guys know the story of Esther, if you don't, I'll just kind of give a quick high level overview. She found favor with the king.
Mm-hmm.
She's from a Jewish home, right? Lineage. And there was a situation occurring in the kingdom where I believe her name is Queen Vashti, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
She might actually go by other names as well, but basically Queen Vashti rejected the king in a sense
Mm-hmm.
publicly. And so the king was very embarrassed, and some of his, I guess, right hand men basically said, listen, essentially, like, get rid of her and bring in somebody else.
Yeah.
And they were searching high and low throughout the kingdom. And I think 120 something provinces, if I'm not mistaken,
Uh-huh.
um, were essentially being looked into to find the one person for the queen,
Yeah.
for the king. And just that was a high level overview, but that's how we wind up getting to Esther,
Mm-hmm.
right? And kind of trippy, but I didn't know that Esther also went by Hadassah. So shout out to all the Hadassahs in the world. But you guys are strong people. Esther specifically stood up for what she believed in.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was reading the story, it was actually really impactful because she had no clue that God was going to use her in that capacity. But in a very real sense, kind of like what you're mentioning, she reflected the image of God. And in doing that, she brought hope
Yeah.
to a whole nation.
Yeah.
Not only her own nation, but she pleased the king. And he was promising up to like literally half his kingdom because of their relationship. But she was like, hey, spare me and spare my people. And in doing so, she, I feel, exemplified what it is to be, I guess, a God fearing person.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, she needed encouragement. It's not like purpose is just so easy to figure out by yourself. For
Yeah.
instance, like in the story, if you go back and read it, I really only read the first 8 chapters, and I've read the book prior, but today I was just locked in, and it was so good that I was just like, I need to figure out more and more and more. And I was doing my little research on it. And in essence, what wound up happening was Mordecai had to encourage her, like, hey, this is what you were brought here for. And I was
Mm.
like, yo, that's wild. Like, who's to say that you didn't make it to the king's palace so that you could redeem his people? And the interesting thing about purpose is we almost always kind of speak about it in a way where it's like, just me, myself, and I'll just leave it like that. Like, oh, like my purpose is to like get bank and like, I don't know, like make it to a specific goal in my life. But like the way that purpose was exemplified here in the
Yeah.
Bible was like what you mentioned. It's giving glory to God,
Yep.
and it's horizontally saving others and giving them an idea of who he is, of who
Mhm.
God is. So to me, I was just like, yo, I think I had it wrong this whole time. Like, my flesh would love to tell me that it's all about me,
Yeah.
that I should be pursuing the things that the world pursues. But when I see it in this specific paradigm, I'm like, yo, I think I was wrong.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
So I guess like kind of going through the whole vision, purpose, and calling, what do you think the vision that Esther had for her life, or the vision that God had for her life?
It's not explicit in the text, to be honest, but it seems like Mordecai kind of hit it on the head. And so Mordecai raised her in place of her father because her parents had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the main things that I really love from Esther's story is the fact that I had mentioned Mordecai was there for her.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just that. And one of the major aspects um of that friendship, that relationship, was that he was able to encourage her, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't just him. So in chapter 4 and verse 12, it says, when Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, she was scared, essentially. So the right before that, she was saying, hey, if I go in and intervene on the behalf of the Jewish nation,
Yeah.
I could get killed.
Yeah.
Because if you approach the king without him calling you,
Yeah.
it could be that he doesn't show favor and she could die.
Yeah.
So then Esther's saying, she's reporting back to Mordecai and she's saying, do not think that, oh no, I'm so sorry. So Mordecai is actually explaining back to her. When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer. Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape,
Mm.
right? For if you remain silent at this time,
Mm.
relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish.
That's crazy.
And it reminded me of a case study thing that I learned in undergrad for like a psychology class. And I may have already mentioned it, but like there was an individual in New York, if I'm not mistaken, who was crying out for help, and it
Mm.
was nighttime. And this, what I remember being a young lady, was basically pleading with anybody who would or could come to her help to help her.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, everybody in the buildings, there were people who were looking out, and everyone was able to hear this. A lot of people were hearing this screaming,
Yeah.
and she was being chased down. And nobody came to the rescue because everyone thought that anyone else or everyone else would handle the situation,
Yeah.
right? And so sometimes God gives us, a position where we are able to help. And it's not for us to be like, somebody else will handle it.
Yeah.
It's actually for us to be like, I'm going to take that on.
Yep.
Sometimes we don't have the bandwidth to, so we do have to juggle.
Yeah.
We have to delegate, but it's not for us to ignore. So if something passes before our eyes, especially if it's an injustice, I don't think it's right for us to just be like, yeah, it's not my problem, you know?
You wouldn't be necessarily living out your purpose. So even if, let's say Esther doesn't do it, like God's purpose for Esther was to live this out, to preserve God's people,
Yeah.
right? And let's say she said no, like Mordecai could be right where like God, because he loves the people too. He
Hmm.
wants to preserve life. So it's like he'll find someone else to also do that, but at the same time it's like you yourself may perish, may
Hmm.
like things may go bad for you.
Hmm.
And so it's like so it is a very dire thing to follow your purpose, because not to be scared, but like when you don't live out
Mm,
the existence of why God created you
mm,
on a day to day,
yeah.
like I think that can get very dangerous very quickly for your own like faith journey.
Yeah, because the thing that you're doing, like essentially you're canceling out the reason for your existence.
Yeah.
And who would want to live in any other
Yep.
life
Because
outside of the one that God created for them?
and the way we are all chasing after the why we exist. So you can't just say like, "Oh, I don't like that's not why I exist," but like you're gonna go chase after another why. I think we're all gonna chase after the whys. So it's like chase after the why the God
Designated to you.
he designated, not the why of what the world is telling you to do and hoping someone else is gonna fulfill that.
And that's a great point. I think that like when we live for others, we often make them the reason that we live.
Yep.
We cannot do that because
Yeah.
once that's the case, and we're talking about flawed human beings, and
Yeah.
it's very easy to get caught up in that. Like we all have role models. We all have people that we love and adore,
Yeah.
and even consider to be like a bridge
Yeah.
for us and God. Like for me, for a very long time, up until today, even, I've seen people in the light of like, wow, like my parents, for instance. They're the reasons why I love God so much. But my dad told me more recently, like, don't get it twisted, but I am not God.
Yeah.
So like don't put me on that pedestal because I'm afraid that one day when I'm gone, it'll hurt you.
Yeah.
And I just kind of sat there like, wow, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
And he just said it so clean that I was just like, conviction. So all this to say that like although these situations are so different, like for instance, the situation with the person in New York, nobody came to their rescue.
Yeah.
And that was very unfortunate. Here, Mordecai is saying, hey, if you don't show up, somebody else will, but your family will have to
Yep.
suffer for the fact that you guys didn't show up on our behalf,
Mhm.
right? And two different and two entirely different situations or results. But needless to say that like I think that we are called to show up for the people who are um needing that love in that
Yep.
moment. And I remember you mentioning it this way. You
Mhm.
mentioned the what, the why, and the how, and that's kind of how you've been reflecting on the three: the vision, the
Mhm.
purpose, and the calling. So how would you explain that, like for them?
So like vision, the what is like what is that future, that big picture, those dreams, desires, and even like the promise that God has given you.
Yeah,
So it's about what's to come.
yeah,
But there's a journey,
yeah,
right? From like where you are to what is that vision that God has placed in you, and the vision that you even have told God, like, God, like I really need this. I really want this. But then purpose is like that why. Why do you exist? So like for Esther, why does she exist? She exists to preserve God's people, to
mm-hmm,
protect them.
mm-hmm,
That is a huge purpose. That's not something to take lightly. And she put her own life on the line.
mm-hmm.
This is not like a fairy tale. This is kind of like, this is what God is saying that we need to do. Like Jesus himself did it,
I was gonna say,
right? And it's like that's our purpose. Will we lay down our life
yeah,
for our loved ones,
mm-hmm.
for people who are hurting? We may not even know them. She had to lay down her whole life for a whole nation.
Mm,
Like, you get what I mean? That's a hard thing.
yeah,
But that's the purpose that God instilled in her. And to me, it's like to reflect God's character.
mm-hmm.
Her purpose was to reflect God's character to the whole world. And that's why we read about her now.
Yeah, actually, I was gonna say like it's interesting that you say it like that. So we got a hoodie not too long ago that literally says no risk, no story. And I'm not saying like go be risky so you could get a story. But what I am saying is a story is to me like it could be a testimony.
Yeah.
And that testimony serves many after you're gone. So we read about people who have lived courageous lives and have put their lives on the line for the sake of the gospel.
Yep.
And because of them, we're still encouraged today.
Yeah.
So when we don't put ourselves out there with God, God isn't saying, hey, I want you to like, you know, do something foolish. He's saying, let me lead you. And the moments that you feel the most scared, the moments that I'm calling you to be there on my behalf and bear my image to the
Yeah.
people there, and you feel insecure, um, those are moments where they will bless a multitude, not just the people there. You'll have stories, they will have stories. They will tell it to their friends, you will tell it to your friends. It will impact generations.
Yep.
Books might be written off of it. You have no clue the ripple effect of what that little moment of obedience can
Yeah.
cause. And Christ did that, like you just mentioned. It's interesting because he came into our space and lived as a human. He came into existence, and his whole soul purpose was to glorify the Father.
Mm-hmm.
So then you must ask, like, what is your whole purpose?
Yeah. And like what I found out was like a lot of our purposes are just tied to that. Like
It is.
it's kind of crazy. Like when you look at the big picture purpose,
Mm-hmm.
I believe we all have a unique way to basically kind of tell the story of like what God has done for us, you know?
Yeah.
The way that we do it, I think, is our calling. But I feel like we all have a purpose to reflect God's image. That is why we were created, to reflect his image.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I still struggle with like love, this aspect of love. Like he loves each and one of us so uniquely. Because I think sometimes, I'll be honest, I get really, weird about this when I'm like, God, did you create us to just to glorify yourself in a egotistical way? Like
Mm.
I'll be honest, I do think like that sometimes. But then I have to understand, like, no, if your whole being is love, right? And you're creating us out of love, we're going to embody the character that you are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it that is our purpose, basically, to kind of give people hope
Yeah.
and healing and restoration,
Yeah.
that there's going to be a point in time where we finally get to be with God, like
Mm.
actually be in the presence of God. And just, I feel like it'll all make sense to us then, like why this is so necessary to constantly point back to God. Esther pointed back
Mm.
to God.
Mm-hmm.
It showed God's glory, God's protection over Israel,
Yeah.
how much he still loves Israel.
Mm.
That's what Esther did. She's just a little, not, she's a big little character
Mm-hmm.
in the major story of redemption.
Yeah.
And I just quickly, like, we were talking about Joseph last week. Like Joseph's purpose was the same thing, to preserve life,
Yeah.
not only his families but
No.
all of Egypt.
Yeah.
Think about God's character when it comes to Egypt,
Being
then,
displayed there.
right? So God is basically using everyone, like, to show his character, to show who he is, like, for me, to love and be loved,
Yeah.
to be in this constant relationship with each other,
Yeah.
so that we can all be like, wow, this is what it is to all be in God's presence.
Mhm. And I was actually gonna ask you, like, why was it important for Esther to do that? But you like completely killed it.
I also want to include, I feel like her Esther's purpose was also to intercede. To
Mhm.
intercede for a whole nation means that you gotta really step up.
Yeah.
You're basically interceding, and you're going to in front of a king, knowing that you're going to potentially die.
Hmm.
You have to have courage for that. You have to have like resilience. You have to be brave. You have to trust God and all of that. And I think God is also asking a lot of us to step up.
Mm-hmm.
Step up in that purpose. It is scary. It's going to be difficult. You look at Joseph's life, that whole life was hard.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine what it is to be a slave, to be imprisoned, to have your name basically tainted,
Yeah.
all this stuff. But his purpose, God was like, you're going to save people, you're going to preserve life, and your family is going to be preserved because of you.
Mm-hmm.
That is the existence. And really, what it showed was God's sovereignty over all of this.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, just so you know, though, and just to share here, is again, it's not like she did it alone.
Mhm.
Joseph, that was a completely different situation, but like here, she not only had Mordecai, but she had people around her in the palace. And then
Mm.
on top of that, she had the whole Jewish nation.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, she, in verse 16, I think it's chapter 4, if I'm not mistaken,
Mm.
um, she says, go gather together all the Jews in Susa and fast for
Mm.
me. So she's saying, like, okay, this is a lot. Can you at least pray for me? Because,
Yeah.
like, it's like she's flipping a coin and she's saying it's 50-50. Like, he will either extend his scepter and give me grace for entering without asking, or he will not, and I will perish. And I just want to, like you said that she's brave. I wanted to say how brave, because her doing this was kind of amazing. So we know Queen Vashti for basically being brave in a opposite direction,
Yeah.
saying, nah, I'm good. And so that situation, so basically Vashti, the main difference was that she basically said no to her husband, rejected him.
Yeah.
And here Esther is coming in and completely different, I guess, shift. She's saying, I want to seek you.
Mm-hmm.
So Vashti's rejecting, she is seeking. And that made all the clearer of a difference to, I bet, the king.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you're pursuing me even when I'm not pursuing you. Whereas
Yeah.
I pursued my previous thing and she said no.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he found favor,
Yeah.
like, or she found favor in his eyes and he extended his scepter.
Yep.
So before that though, they fasted, right? And when she went in, she said essentially, like, if I perish, or right before she went in, she said, if I perish, I perish.
Mm-hmm.
She was accepting of that and she
Yeah.
was okay with that. And the reason why I think that's important is mostly because of this verse in the New Testament. So Romans 10:12 through 15 says this: For there is no difference between Jew and Gentile. The same Lord is Lord of all and
Mm-hmm.
richly blesses all who call on him,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this is to say that, like, we should be everywhere,
Yeah.
proclaiming, testifying of the goodness of God. It's not just in the easiest circumstances. God is calling every single one of us to be able to be a, like, beacon of hope. And that's what I was talking about last week when we were speaking about vision.
Yeah.
He ignites a little spark in us, an ember, a fire in our bones, so that we could go out
Yeah.
and do his will. And that will, that purpose is ultimately to reflect that of Christ. And
Yep.
that was to glorify the Father. And if we keep reading, it literally says, For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. How much more wouldn't you want people to, like, call on the name of the Lord, knowing that they will be saved and richly blessed? And this is really like his appeal, like Paul's appeal or his call to action. How then can they call on the one they have not believed in?
Mm.
And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard?
Yeah.
You know where I'm going. And how can they hear without someone preaching to them, right?
Yeah.
And so if you look in the Greek, totally forgetting the word right now, but basically it's the same word for proclaim,
Uh-huh.
as in to say proclaim the good news. So, like, when people hear preach, it's like, well, I'm not a preacher. That's not what we're saying right now, though. We're saying just,
Live out.
yes, exactly. Share, live, extend the beauty of what God has done
Yeah.
in your life to others,
Yep.
because that will be all the more of a blessing to them.
Yep.
And then when we continue on, it says, And how can anyone preach unless they are sent? As it is written, How beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news.
Mm.
And to kind of wrap that up, like, what I wrote down for that, to bring good news is to be an image bearer. They're mutually interchangeable. And it makes me feel like the more that we kind of acknowledge this is what we're here to do,
Mm-hmm.
it might come in different packagings. It may look different from person to person. It may be daunting at times for each of us, no matter what field, what specialization we're in.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you could be an engineer, you could be a pastor, you could be a doctor, you could be a dentist, you could anything, like literally anything, and everything you do. You could be off your job and still be an image bearer and be a
Mm-hmm.
light to a person who's really needing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, probably mentioned it a bunch of times, but I love Jeremiah, or like the book of Jeremiah, and chapter 29, verse 11 hits. My dad has been bringing it up like a lot lately, and so I feel obliged to share this, especially in context with the story of Esther. It says, For I know the paths I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. And it kind of relates back to what you were mentioning. Like, we are set here to be a hope to
Mm-hmm.
people. And that's exactly what she was like, because the reality was, if it weren't for her in that instance, it would be a whole nation that would have either, you know, gone under
Yeah.
or been impacted in a very negative way because of that.
Yeah.
I don't know if Mordecai was absolutely right. Who knows? Maybe he was. Maybe somebody else would have come up and delivered. But needless to say, she stepped up and she
Yeah.
handled it and she stood on mission because God called her to it.
And it reminds me, like, you know, think about the person that gave you hope.
Mm,
If they weren't courageous enough to step up
mm,
and live out their purpose, would you still be here? And the reason why I'm thinking about this is because I came into Christianity, like you introduced me to Christianity, but the thing that really just
mm,
drove the nail in the coffin was listening to Nabil Qureshi.
mm-hmm.
And you saying that, I was just like, if he didn't live out his purpose, if he didn't go, fearlessly into this faith, knowing all the stuff that he's going to lose,
Yeah.
all the shame, all of the just the the brokenness it caused to his family. Like, if he didn't live that out, I wouldn't. I don't think. I think it would be really difficult for me,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I would actually be here.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it takes someone to be courageous to live out their purpose. And I do believe all of us have an idea of who that person or people were. But now God is calling us to be those people to other people,
Yeah.
because this is how God's gospel is getting shared. It's
Yeah.
because we're all stepping into our purpose of, we need to glorify God. We need to tell people of what God has done in our lives. We need to tell people there's restoration in us being image bearers, because our image was broken,
Yeah.
right? And there's restoration in that, and there's salvation, and we get to be in God's presence again in the future. And you know and we just have so much good news to give, right? And it requires us to be courageous. Like, to be courageous is knowing that you're going to go do hard things,
Yeah.
and you have to say yes to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hardest thing to say, because that's us right now in this season of, like, doing hard things, and we don't want to say yes to it.
No.
We so badly want to cower away and just hide in a little whatever and just,
I, I think that's human nature. Like, you
yeah,
don't want to get pushed past your limits, and God's like, but I have a plan for you.
yeah,
And I think it is beautiful. I mean, like, some of the hardest things in life yield out the best rewards.
yeah,
And often we don't want that, even if the reward is amazing. But I think the edification of character and seeing, like, getting past through those hurdles and coming through to the other side, you're like, this was all worth it.
yeah,
For instance, the other day, I was spending time with somebody and they were going through a challenging time. And we just, like, we were playing ball. And for them, it seemed like it meant the world. And I lost 2 games in a row, which is totally fine. But I saw the smile on that person's face and I was like, yeah, I'm sold out to this, bro. Like, I told God, I'm like, if this is what you're calling me to on a day to day, to give hope by losing at basketball, like,
mm-hmm.
listen, I'll take L's every day.
And I was gonna say, like, when I was thinking about, what is my purpose, God? Like, after all of this, what is my purpose? And honestly, I think mine is to love and be loved,
Yeah.
to heal,
Mm-hmm.
and to walk in my faith journey, to be restored back to God, but then help other people walk in that journey.
Yeah.
And I think God sees our uniqueness and sees who we need to reach out to. Like, for me, like, my family means a lot to me, and I believe that God, made me, created me for my family,
Amen.
for me to really show, because you're saying preach, to show,
Yeah.
right? God, and who he is and what he's done, and like how amazing he is, right? And I feel like God takes all of that into consideration. And I also was thinking, like, don't compare yourself to others. For me, my purpose, I'm all about small and intimate moments.
Mm.
My purpose, I feel like, what I mean by my purpose is, I feel like God uses me in these small and intimate moments.
Yeah.
God uses me to reflect back onto him when I'm talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm letting people know what's going on, or kind of hearing people about what's going on in their life, and like we're reflecting back to God and guiding I feel like my purpose is to guide people back to God even in hard times, and being like, I don't have the answer,
But he does.
but he does, and you have to just trust it. You have to just know that he is also breaking in these times, because like I think that's just where I'm at, and I think God knows that, and so he's wanting. I feel like he's wanting to use me to finally be like, go and do that, non,
Mm,
because I need people there.
mhm,
You know, I need people in those big places, but I need people in those small
mhm.
places, you know? And I feel like, okay, God, like I'm gonna stop comparing myself now, and I'm gonna, like, just be.
Yeah,
Like it's a state of being. Like
yeah,
purpose is a state of being. And when you know that you were existed, when you know you were created because God just so loves you so much, that state of being is really your purpose.
yeah.
That it's just God just loves you so much. And he just wants the best for you. And he wants to also use you so that other people can also like find out who he is, because his name is constantly getting tarnished
Yeah.
and constantly being put to shame
Mhm.
by other people. And like I just feel like he's just wanting us to be in a relationship with him, and then helping others be in a relationship with him as well.
That's good. I appreciate you saying all of that. And it kind of prompted this idea like, how much did Adam contribute to his own creation? Yet
Yeah.
God still loved him straight from the jump. Like
Yep.
there was nothing he could add to himself. And forgetting the word right now in Hebrew, but it's not that he was formed out of clay. He was formed out of like dust. So like
Yeah.
the thing that is the most useless in the world, like you can't, I remember going through a class on this. It's like clay, you can mold it, you could form it, you could turn it into a whole bunch of different things. If you like, this was the analogy that a professor gave me. If you sweep up all the dust in your kitchen and use a little bit of water, maybe it might hold in a position for a second, but allow it to dry out and it'll just go back to whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so we were formed out of something so meaningless. And I think
Mhm.
that's so meaningful because it's to show like in our weakness, no
Yeah.
matter what the situation might look like, he is always going to be strong
Yeah.
and carry us. And
Yep.
that means that in our being, like what you mentioned, we're already good enough.
Yeah.
But he's still calling us to be like Esther.
Yep.
He's calling us to be like Jesus. He's calling us to be like Jeremiah
Yep.
and stand firm on mission when he asks us to go speak to people. And the reality is we get concerned like, "Oh, what am I going to say?" What did what did he tell Jeremiah? Like, "I will give you the words.
Yep.
I will put the words on your mouth. Do not be scared. Do not allow your youth to be the reason why you veer off and not do my will."
Yeah.
And if we all have more of that zeal in us and that trust in him, alongside the people who are supporting us, like Mordecai's and a whole community
People fasting
fasting,
for us. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We'll be all the more ready when that day comes, when that moment comes. Because, high key, again, I was scared of preaching, and now I really love diving into the word and sharing what God has shared with me. But that didn't come easily. That came through persistence and people
Yeah.
praying for me. And one of my first sermons ever,
Yeah.
people were praying like crazy for me. And I was like, praise God, because I was going to faint. And when I got through to the other side, I was like, okay, I will never do this again. And now here I am, like regularly doing it. So, like,
Yeah.
you need your community around you.
So I just want to like summarize a couple notes that I wrote. So your purpose is not something you chase.
It's
Can't
already
chase
freely given.
purpose.
No,
You could chase God though. You could chase like
he's like, come and catch me.
your purpose is
Yeah.
not something you can chase outside yourself. It's something God has placed in you. It's not about you doing more. So notice you can't chase it. It's not about you doing more, but it's aligning yourself with God's heart, who he is,
Yeah.
his state of being,
Yeah.
right? And then when you step into your purpose, you can bring others into healing and hope.
Yeah.
And that really resonated with me, because it's like, it's not so much us doing, it's us being.
Hmm.
It's a state of being. And it's a really weird, and this is like that weird part of me. I was like asking John, like, or, is vision calling and a vision, purpose, and calling kind of like the adjective, noun, and verb? And you were like, I think so. And so we started looking into it. So it's like super random, but an adjective would be equivalent to vision. It's what? It's the descriptor,
Hmm.
right? The verb is the calling, it's the action, it's the how.
Hmm.
But the purpose is the noun.
Hmm.
It's the why. It's the anchor.
Hmm.
It's the state of being.
Yeah.
Like I just want to say it's a state of being,
Yeah.
right? to be able to do this, you strip yourself from all titles. You find a central reason why you exist, which is in God.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it doesn't shift. Your purpose won't shift. It's not changing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the thing that anchors, it grounds your life. And so there's an example that we both heard and we're like, wow, that's really good. It says, a hammer's purpose is to drive nails. It may be called to build a house today, a shed tomorrow, or art the next day. But the noun, the hammer, stays the same. So the essence, its being, stays the same. So it's like our purpose is that essence. It's who we are. It's why God created us, why we exist.
Yeah.
That will never change.
That's wild.
I guess to kind of wrap it up, like, you know, really think about, why did God create you? And those are hard questions. I still struggle with them, you know, a lot. Why do you exist? Who is God then? And those are like these crazy questions that you're like, because it all points to your purpose then. And it is to be in a relationship with God. Is not to do a relationship with God, it's to be. Be in a relationship with God. It's a state of being. And then you can then see, like, God created me for this purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And it kind of reminds me like Psalms 51, where it kind of explains there's no sacrifice that you could give. I just want your heart. Like, I just want you to be sold out to me.
Yeah.
From there, I will let you know what to do.
Yeah.
But often we could get caught up in the busyness of life and we could forget, like you mentioned, just being.
Yeah. Just be in that state of being with God and see what comes of it. Because only, I believe, like, God tells us our purpose.
Yeah.
Yes, we have Mordecai's and people and everything, but ultimately it's just like God really telling us, like, this is why
You're
this
here.
is why I love you so much. So yeah, hopefully this helped. That, like I was telling John, like, you know, I've been fearing doing this specific episode because I struggle with purpose so much. You know, I think it's just a big word and it's a scary word. But then it's like so simple, because when you realize it's glorifying God, it's being in a relationship with God, it's embodying his character.
Yeah, man,
It is so simple.
that is such a word.
It's not easy though, but it's simple.
No, you're right. But it makes me think of Enoch, and I'll just wrap it up here. Like, Enoch walked with God, and I think the way that he did that was in everything he did, he surrendered it over to him. He asked him about everything. He's like, these socks or those? Kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, God gives us choice, but what I'm trying to say is he wasn't scared of being that vulnerable in front of him. So I think if I had an wild, I would challenge everybody to ask themselves and ask even a friend of a friend, hey, what is your purpose? And what's it have to do with God? And allow that to stick and journal it out a little bit and find out what your real purpose is. And then we'll hit you up when we got the Calling podcast out. Yep.
So next week we are going to be wrapping up the 7 Circles for Saints model series, whatever you want to call it, by talking about calling, which is, again, is the verb, is the action. So like, it's all the roles and responsibilities, but we're going to go into that further next week. So thank you guys so much for listening. Leave us any comments, questions that you may have, even prayers, whatever you guys need from us, let us know. And I guess we'll see you in the next episode.
Yep.
All right. Peace. Bye, guys.